Hi, welcome to Yo Soy Neighborhoods Fresno. We're back online. Great to see all of you out there in Fresno. We have Kimberly Hollingsworth Horn, and she's with the National Union Healthcare Workers Union, and she says that it's only 12 years old. But I'm going to let the steward, Kimberly, share with you a little bit of who and why they decided to create this union.
Okay, so a member of National Union of Healthcare Workers. I'm an employee at Kaiser Permanente in psychiatry, but I'm also an elected steward for our union. National Union of Healthcare Workers is about 12 years old. We decertified from SEIU about 12 years ago, and we're currently working on our third contract with Kaiser Permanente. And part of the reason I'm here is to talk about our strike action and what we're working towards.
Yeah, that strike. How long ago did you start that?
We're starting our 8th week on Monday. 8 weeks.
Okay, so now, since you just, I was really amazed you defranchised from
Psychotherapist, and so I provide mental health treatment for patients. And so what that day looks like is 6 to 8 appointments with, and I work with children and teens, of about an hour of therapy with those children. And some of them do have psychiatrists or doctors that they work with as well, but the majority are there for therapy only.
Okay.
And we're called IBHS, Integrated Behavioral Health Services, and there's also a unit or a local in Southern California called Psych Social, and we are about 2,000 members each now. And at this point, the Northern California unit, IBHS, is striking. But what we decided was bargain contracts based on what the leadership thought was best for everybody and not taking input from the members. So we left SEIU and now we're with NUHW, and we're membership driven. So it means that any leadership is elected, the members make the decisions by voting on the decisions, and or the stewards represent what their local community wishes.
And this is
Kaiser Permanente's offer for wages. So it's not about money, it's about patient care. It's about access to therapy. It's about time to do some of the accessory jobs such as writing letters, communicating with teachers or employers, or connecting patients with resources. And so our issues with Kaiser at this point in bargaining are kind of like, how do we improve patient care? Because it is very poor at this time.
Yeah, I noticed, I think myself and a couple of the other ladies' moms were recognizing the fact that during this pandemic, everything kind of just shut down, so to speak. And some doctors chose not to allow people to come to their office at all. Others took a chance. And for the majority, I think that the clinics were like, well, let's keep them at distance, but if they're really bad off and they need some help, we need to bring them in. Do I understand that?
Yes, that's very much true. With Kaiser Permanente Fresno and in Northern California, all in-person care was canceled, right? We did everything by telephone or video for 2 years. Last year we opened up some in-office services. And what happened with that was there was a drastic reduction in cancellation or failures to attend appointments, because you could just click on your phone or you could get on your video and attend the appointment wherever you were at, versus leave your job, pick up your child, get to the therapist office, have therapy for an hour, take your kid back to school, get back to you'd lose half your day in that process. And now it's like, you know, the kid's right there, they have their phone, they get to attend the appointment. And so there's a reduction in loss of patient attendance, which is excellent. People were coming to appointments, but it also meant that we had less appointments to offer because people were attending appointments. So Kaiser needs to boost the staffing, right? That's part of it, but also to make a priority of return appointments for therapy. They prioritize new appointments, which means that If you call the department and say, I'd like a therapy appointment, they'll get you in within about 10 days, 5 to 10 days. But you won't have a return appointment for 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. And that is the process from that point on, is very infrequent return therapy appointments. And so,
Yeah, but that's not good.
and it's not therapy, it's not even case management. And so that's why we're out on the picket line. We're fighting for patients' access for appointments.
Definitely, because I know when I was in therapy many years ago, we would always just schedule the following week, and it was very consistent.
Yes, it's supposed to be,
It's
yes.
very, very consistent because you go home and whatever the therapist has suggested you try
Yes.
in order to change your behavior habit, because that's what you're doing, teaching them how to deal with their own behaviors that are maybe skewed a bit, or maybe they never had any training at all. And pretty much you're giving them, you know, homework. That's what it comes down to.
It is.
And you go home, you try it out, then you come back to the therapist and you say, they ask you, well, how did that work out? Whatever it was that they, for example, give one of the routine trainings.
An example might be to, I work with children or teens and they are shy. They don't have very many friends. And so I might give I call it homework, I give an assignment that they might talk to someone in class, whether it's to ask to borrow a pencil or whether it's to, you know, comment on the logo on, you know, the image on their shirt or something like that. Just, you know, just to kind of practice reaching out and connecting with somebody socially. And so, but if you have an appointment frequently enough, every week to every 2 weeks, then there's more possibility the child or the patient might practice, right? And even if they don't, keeps any patient in mental health in a chronic state of acuity, which just means they have symptoms that are interfering with their life. They're not able to work. They're not able to function within their families or in their community. And sometimes it just kind of like really becomes like a snowball or an avalanche where they get much, much worse quickly, and it's difficult. It takes a long time to recover, right? For anything. So it's better to kind of like provide services and make improvement, and then, you know, then therapy's over.
Yeah, if they're coming every week, then you know, like you said, you can ask, well, what interfered, and then you pick up on really what's going on, rather than just that, you know, exercise that opens doors.
But, you know, like I said, right now what happens is we schedule an appointment and we barely scratch the surface, and then we schedule another, and it just kind of maintains that level of chronic symptoms, right? And so we're basically developing, you know, a population of children, teens, adults who aren't progressing, who aren't being able to return to full functioning in the community, at their schools, with their friends, whatever, family.
Well, so this really, I mean, right now, especially right now, because we're noticing after the pandemic, all of these issues are really popping up to the top. And folks like yourself that have this particular knowledge are the people that we need the most right now.
We as therapists, those of us on strike, we're resolute to help Kaiser create a system that improves patient care, right? And we're willing to, you know, offer ideas, suggestions, solutions that we think can help. We have a sense of outrage too, because the message we get from Kaiser during the bargaining process, or even in our work sites, is there isn't a problem, that status quo is acceptable. And, you know, despite what we say, the examples we give, the problems we have, and or whether patients, you know, are explaining to Kaiser their difficulties, it just seems to fall on deaf ears. And Kaiser has money. It's not like we're a nonprofit agency. I work for the side that has profit, right? They have money to make a difference, and it doesn't cost a lot. Our union leadership, the staff, we're saying that in some ways, some of the things we're asking for, like one item is like an increased time to do some of the collateral work, like call CPS or talk to the parents or write a letter for disability or whatever it might be, would increase 32 full-time therapists in Northern California. 32 in all of Kaiser's sites in Northern California. So not 32 in Fresno. It's, and so that's really nothing.
That's not many.
Yes, yeah, and so that way we see the patients, we address some of the outside the appointment issues, and they have good care, right? So that's just an example of some of the things that are small, but yet not, that Kaiser's not willing to kind of like even consider as a
But all of that
possibility.
collateral work is very important. I mean, scratching the surface here with what I've heard with you, it sounds like you not only need the people that you've lost, you need many more.
Exactly. Our last contract we bargained, and it started in 2018, and it expired September 30th, 2021, so just about a year ago.
Not a good
Right.
time.
But during that, Kaiser, for that contract, Kaiser had the intention to hire 250 more therapists in Northern California, just based on what the needs were at different sites or a different adult team, whether it was intensive care for, like day treatment, whatever, addiction medicine. And they hired close to that amount, but they also lost a good amount of people. And so they really are behind in many ways. And Kaiser is saying, well, there are no therapists to hire. And there are a lot of folks out in the community, more so like the Bay Area and Sacramento have a higher population of psychotherapists. But Kaiser used to be the place to work because there was good pay, good benefits, and a good working environment. And that was important to Kaiser. It no longer is. The pay is okay, it's good enough, right? Benefits okay. But the working environment and the ability to do your job and do it well and professionally,
What happened?
ethically, it just became that it doesn't seem important to provide treatment for patients, but just to download on your phone. Okay, so listen to that podcast. Go onto the app and do the exercises it tells you to do. So it's really kind of leaning on some of the digital care in a lot of ways, and I think that might be the wave of the future. I don't know, but right now we got people in need, right? And so they got to address it, right? And until we have that knowledge that this is helpful in mental health, whatever it is, helping your sleep and any of that stuff, meditation. They need to have the staff to provide the services for those that doesn't help. And there's many, right? That probably would help folks who have mild kind of symptoms of anxiety, depression, whatever.
I don't think you're dealing with mild right now.
We are not.
Rules, so to speak.
Right. So our union, NUHW and IBHS, the therapists in the union, as well as the staff of the union, work together with legislators to create laws. One was SB 855, which is about parity. Even though it's federal parity, this is state parity, that mental health care gets equal treatment as medical care, and that passed. And then this, I think last July, a year ago, SB 221 passed, and both were signed by Governor Newsom. And SB 221 requires that mental health patients have return therapy appointments every 10 days. It's a requirement, unless the therapist says they don't need it. And so it has to be part of the treatment plan that is not necessary right now. And there are some of my patients that I can imagine that would be true. But there's a lot of patients I have that would benefit from that.
Yeah,
And
I would imagine that you have a ton of people
Yes.
out here that need a lot of help. I mean, we're getting an after COVID trash back. I don't know how to say it quite like that, but people that...
Well, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of change, there's anxiety getting back out there and being with people when we were told it was dangerous, right? It just kind of impacts all of us in different ways.
And people are very, very nervous still.
Yes, yeah. And I just know that spending 2 months on the picket line, what has touched me the most, it's fun and it's not fun to be out there, right? But when patients of Kaiser come up to us and tell us their stories about whether or not they had good care or not, or what worked and what didn't, In a lot of ways, it's heartbreaking because I hear the stories of those that, worsen to the point of maybe attempting to kill themselves, right?
Right.
And it's not needed. It's not necessary to have that lack of care for patients. I worry because if we weren't out there, those 1 to 5 people that stop by every day, who would hear their stories? Even though we don't have anything we can do, we hear it. There's something that happens in that moment, and that worries me.
That's out of the mind, you can't. And it's really sad that our society has not been more focused on taking care of our mental health.
And then, the worst case scenarios are that if it isn't treated, the child, the adult gets worse. We find stuff that helps.
Very important key to how our society runs, and if we don't get on board.
Right. And in my sense is not every child or every adult could be maybe benefit from psychotherapy, but I think there's a large number of people who wouldn't, go down certain pathways. And then for those that, to have an increased police or security presence, if you would, at schools could be something. But then it's a different environment, or it's a different social climate, if you would, in that way. And I don't know necessarily that's the problem, right? We don't have a bunch of kids there that are like criminals or hurting others. There's but so part of it is, how do we find that right balance, right? That we have the officer who's there for guidance and advice to the school staff, right, of how to maybe solve problems or handle situations. In some ways, a few years back, there was a number of suicides at the high schools, and it was almost like that copycat kind of phenomenon. And so I know our department, Fresno Psychiatry and Kaiser, had met with county leaders and school board and teachers unions and whatever to try to collaborate in ways to kind of prevent or to reduce these things from happening. And it was difficult because using symptoms and then provides a medication prescription or recommendation for prescription to impact or reduce those symptoms. And I think of therapy or psychotherapy, what I do as a licensed marriage family therapist is like a supportive of what the doctor might do. Not every patient needs medication. There's few that don't benefit from it and many that don't want it. And so if that's the case, let me do my job and provide therapy, and let's find ways to help them progress and improve, reduce problems, and create healthier behaviors or choices by just kind of considering their life and their experiences and what's going on.
Just as we started, we said it's a training.
Yes.
And all of us are socialized that's what I said to someone before. Your parent socialized you. And who socialized them? Their parent. And their parent before them.
Yes.
So there are a lot of mistakes being made in between.
And some improvements along the way too, right?
Right.
Like sometimes we do have that happen as well. Yeah, and so, as a therapist that works with children and teens, part of my role is to balance, support the parents in their authority, but also, maybe help them consider some ways that there might be, how do you help the kid be responsible, but yet maintain your authority, right, without maybe
The audience, how to deal with other people.
And building resources for themselves, like making friends or being active in community.
Saying to have a standard of care, 1 through 10, these are what we need to maintain, period, for our clients to come out with feeling as though they've gotten a complete care package.
Yes, and it's not an
Of people needing these type of services. Kaiser is definitely a center, and I really appreciate the fact that you went ahead and did this union.
Yes, I am thankful because we would have gone.
It's very important for people to understand and know this. You're on the other end of the patient care, and it's good to know that you're fighting for us too.
Right.